In this video, we're going to talk about top 10 horror movies from last 10 years. If you didn't subscribe our channel yet, then please don't subscribe and don't like our video. I'm fed up to say subscribe and subscribe. Before we start this video, we express our condolence for the peoples who have lost their home in LA wildfire. Our number 10 countdown is the Babadook. This is an Australian psychological horror film directed by Jennifer Kent. The film is known for its eerie atmosphere, strong performances, and use of metaphor to enhance the horror. The story follows Amelia, a widowed mother, and her young son, Samuel, who is afraid of a creature called the Babadook. His fears seem to come true when they find a strange pop-up book titled Mr. Babadook that appears to bring the creature to life. As the film progresses, Amelia's mental state begins to unravel, and it becomes unclear whether the Babadook is a real supernatural being or a symbol of Amelia's unresolved grief over the death of her husband. The film blurs the line between the external terror of the creature and the internal horror of Amelia's emotional struggles. Our number 9 countdown is as follows.
No, it's me.
Everything's okay.
This is a unique and unsettling horror film. It is directed by David Robert Mitchell. It follows Jay, a teenager who has a seemingly normal life until she has a sexual encounter with her boyfriend, Hugh. Afterward, she learns that she has been cursed. The curse is passed on through sexual contact, and the entity that haunts her is relentless. It can take on the appearance of anyone, but it always follows its victim at a slow pace, determined to kill them. As Jay tries to understand what's happening to her, she realizes that the entity is now after her, and she must find a way to escape its pursuit. Her friends attempt to help, but the terrifying creature keeps coming, relentlessly tracking her down. Jay must constantly stay on the move, but the entity's ability to blend in with her surroundings makes it nearly impossible to know when or where it will strike next. The tension builds as Jay becomes increasingly paranoid and desperate to find a solution before the entity catches her. Our number 8 countdown is The Witch. This is a slow-burn horror film directed by Robert Eggers. It is set in 1630s New England, where a Puritan family is banished from their village and settles on a remote farm near a dark forest. As time passes, strange things begin to happen. Crops fail, animals act oddly, and the family becomes increasingly paranoid. They start to suspect that a witch might be living in the forest, causing these misfortunes. The story focuses on Thomasin, the teenage daughter, who faces growing tension with her family as she begins to question everything around her. As fear and distrust spread, the family's unraveling leads to tragic consequences. The film quietly builds its horror through atmosphere and the emotional breakdown of the family rather than relying on shock or gore. Our number 7 countdown is Get Out. It is a smart and intense horror film written and directed by Jordan Peele. It follows Chris, a young African-American man, agrees to visit his white girlfriend Rose's family for the weekend at their remote estate. At first, Chris feels uncomfortable being the only black person in a predominantly white, affluent neighborhood, but he brushes off his unease. As the visit progresses, he notices strange behavior from Rose's parents, as well as from their staff, who are also African-American but act oddly. Chris becomes increasingly suspicious and begins to feel trapped. After a disturbing encounter with the family's guests, he uncovers a horrifying secret. Our number 6 countdown is Hereditary. This is a really unsettling horror film directed by Ari Aster. It's about a family, the Grahams, dealing with the death of the grandmother, Ellen, the mother, Annie, played by Toni Collette, and her family start to notice some really strange and disturbing things happening after the funeral. As they try to cope with their grief, they uncover some dark and terrifying secrets about their family's past. Annie, who's an artist, starts having unsettling visions and gets in contact with someone who reveals more about her mother's hidden life. Meanwhile, things get worse with her kids, especially after a tragic accident involving her son, Peter. The tension builds and builds as the family unravels, leading to a shocking and heartbreaking conclusion. What makes Hereditary stand out is how it mixes psychological horror with supernatural elements. It's not just about scares. It's about grief, guilt, and the heavy weight of family secrets. Our number 5 countdown is Midsommar.
90 years.
This is a really creepy horror film from Ari Aster, the same guy who did Hereditary. It follows Dani, played by Florence Pugh, who's dealing with the terrible grief of losing her family. She ends up going with her boyfriend, Christian, and his friends to Sweden for a midsummer festival in this remote village. What starts off as a peaceful, almost dreamlike experience quickly turns dark and twisted as they get involved in the strange, disturbing rituals of a pagan cult. At first, everything seems harmless enough, but things take a really disturbing turn as the festival's traditions become more violent and unsettling. Dani's own trauma starts to mix with the cult's practices, and it gets to the point where her emotional breakdown feels like it's part of the horror. It's a wild ride, especially because all this horror happens in broad daylight, which just makes it feel that much more unsettling. Our number 4 countdown is Possessor.
Very good.
This is a seriously unsettling sci-fi horror film. It is directed by Brandon Cronenberg. It follows Tasia Voss, an assassin working for a secretive organization that uses advanced technology to take over other people's bodies. Tasia's job is to possess these individuals and carry out high-profile assassinations without leaving a trace. Her latest assignment involves taking control of Colin, the boyfriend of a wealthy heiress, in order to murder her father. As Tasia enters Colin's mind and body, things go wrong. Colin begins to fight back against Tasia's control, and their struggle for dominance escalates. Meanwhile, Tasia's own grip on her sense of self starts to deteriorate as the psychological and physical toll of her violent job begins to take its toll on her. Our number 3 countdown is The Night House.
You're safe now.
This is a psychological horror film. It is directed by David Bruckner. It follows Beth, a woman mourning the unexpected death of her husband, Owen, who drowned while out on a lake. Struggling with grief, she begins to go through his belongings in their remote lakeside home, hoping to make sense of his sudden passing. During this process, Beth uncovers unsettling and mysterious things about her husband that she never knew. She finds strange architectural plans for a house that closely resembles the one she's living in and starts to experience eerie, unexplained phenomena. As Beth digs deeper into her husband's past, she starts having disturbing visions and encounters that blur the line between reality and the supernatural. The haunting revelations lead her to a shocking discovery about Owen's secret life and the true nature of his death. Our number 2 countdown is Speak No Evil.
Remember that time you guys came to stay? And you flipped out and tried to leave without saying goodbye?
It follows a Danish couple, Bjorn and Louise, who meet a Dutch couple, Patrick and Karen, while on vacation. The two families hit it off and quickly become friends. The Dutch couple invites Bjorn and Louise to visit them in the Netherlands, and they agree. When the Danish family arrives, things begin to feel off. The Dutch couple's behavior becomes increasingly strange and uncomfortable, particularly in how they treat their young daughter, who seems to be neglected and mistreated. As the visit progresses, the atmosphere becomes more unsettling, with the Danish family feeling increasingly uneasy but unsure how to address the situation. Despite growing signs that something is seriously wrong, Bjorn and Louise don't speak up, trying to remain polite and avoid confrontation. However, their hesitation to set boundaries and their unwillingness to confront the unsettling behavior ultimately leads to horrifying consequences. Our number 1 countdown is When Evil Lurks.
Se terminan rápido.
It follows 2 brothers, Pedro and Eduardo, who live in a remote rural town in Argentina. They come across a disturbing situation when they discover a man named Javier, who is gravely ill and believed to be possessed by a dark, demonic force. As they try to help him, they unknowingly trigger the spread of this evil. Javier's condition worsens, and it becomes apparent that the demon inside him is not only taking control of his body, but is also slowly infecting others. Pedro and Eduardo must figure out how to stop the spread of the malevolent force, but as the town descends into chaos, they find themselves overwhelmed by the evil they have unwittingly unleashed. With the demonic presence growing stronger, the brothers must face terrifying and deadly consequences in a desperate attempt to survive.